And now I have also the great pleasure to introduce another important partner of ours, Oliver Poole, the Executive Director of the ESI Media Group that includes such important publications as the Evening Standard and the Independent, and who is also the media partner for this event. And Oliver also personally is really deeply committed to wildlife protection and to the topics that we are talking about today. And so, Oliver, please.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Walter. And I should start off by firstly thanking you and Steve for putting together such an interesting group of people. The thing that I think makes this so remarkable is the range of entities that are involved today. There's too often, I find, in this space that we risk ending up talking to ourselves or preaching to the converted. But here today, you've got, as in fact was so perfectly highlighted by the previous speaker, we have corporates, we have also politicians, and most importantly, we have the Vatican, which has such an important reach. I'm British, and in London at the moment, we have the Extinction Rebellion protests going on. Now, all of us know on this call, and all of us know who are part of this roundtable or listening to this, that the people driving the Extinction Rebellion approach are driven by the best and most pure of motives. But when I look at what they're doing and when I listen to what people are saying about their reaction to it, the way they're behaving in trying to tell this story, which is basically a very direct action approach to cause inconvenience to people. Much of the imagery involves a kind of extremely anarchist approach involving people playing drums and so on like this, all of which has its place and is extremely effective in its own area. When one looks at what they're doing and the impact it's having, it fills me with sadness, because the desire of these people is to raise the issue of climate change and demand change to what is going on. But the ways they're doing it, the effect of it is that actually they're alienating the very people who they need to be reaching out to. The normal people, the average people who are just sitting there working out how they're going to pay their mortgages, who worry about the jobs their children are going to get, who worry about the air they breathe. And that's why I'm so pleased to be here today, because communications, the way we can actually talk to people, is an absolutely key and fundamental part of this broad and extensive coalition that is happening here. There is a danger that if we make people believe that the solution, that the problem is so massive, that the scale of the disaster that is unfolding is so extreme, that people will just give up and think this is impossible for people to be able to find solutions to. And more than that, that they will therefore start turning off and not engaging with the conversation that we're having. In the media world, we can see this ourselves. We can track exactly the articles that get traction. We can see the social media that begins to break out from just a little echo chamber of people saying the same stuff. Because as a newspaper group, we come to this from a conservation space. We're absolutely committed to the issue of nature and the protection of nature. For the last 2 years, we've been running an illegal wildlife trade campaign to try to highlight these issues. And what we realized beyond everything is that the time for terrorizing people has stopped. What we need to do is to start being able to provide solutions that are in people's self-interest. It's why I was also so interested in what Hunter was saying, because the thing that was so great about that, and it was, beyond it, I have to admit, I'm an obsessive vegetable grower, and spend my whole time fretting about how I could make my sweet corns bigger. And I was really gripped by the whole bit about the color of the earth. But at the heart of what she was saying was that solutions need to be based in people's self-interest. And that the way that this was proving so effective was by showing farmers that if they did the right thing, they would benefit economically from that. And we've seen that as well in conservation programs occurring across Africa and the world, many of which people here have been involved in and alluding to. The fact that at the heart of this is showing to people how it creates jobs, how it creates tax returns for the countries, how basically doing the right thing is in people's self-interest, not terrorizing people into doing it, not lecturing them, but demonstrating the small and important steps that can be taken to achieve what is to be done. And that is what we need from a comms perspective as well, which brings us to today and what is happening here today and why it matters, because we have had the pandemic. And that pandemic has affected the lives of every single person on this planet. And as has been highlighted, we're not 100% sure where COVID-19 came from, but in all likelihood, it has come from nature. And certainly the zoological risk and transfer has caused other similar diseases to emerge, and that we know without a doubt. And so we have a moment here, we have a second where the world is turning and listening to what many of us have been talking about for decades and certainly years, and trying desperately to get people to listen. So from a communications perspective and a chance to engage with the wider world, this is a really unique moment to be able to get people to engage, and it is one we need to grip. And what is interesting about today is the involvement of the Vatican, is the involvement of the corpus, is the fact this is moving beyond some of the normal groups that we find on all of these type of roundtables, but it's actually enabling that core message about our relationship with nature, the color of the earth, to get across. We have a powerful story to tell at the moment, and it is our responsibility to tell it, one of engaging stories, one packaged for people to be able to not be intimidated by, not be frightened by, but know that this is a story that is helping deliver what they care about, the health of their children, their jobs, their future. And one of the things that's so good about today is that, and I happen to know that the next speaker is a person who has personally demonstrated this and how this can be achieved, how by packaging what we know to be the right steps for wildlife, to be the right steps for the environment, can be sold to the people of a nation state. Because next we have Professor Judy Wahungu, who is now the ambassador of Kenya to Paris and the Vatican and, to be honest, various other European states. But she used to be the Minister for Wildlife in Kenya. And while there, she did a number of very interesting things. But the thing that was most interesting, well, she won't like me saying like that. One of the things that was the most interesting was she banned plastic bags while she was in charge. And when they did it, everybody said, no, this is impossible. No one's going to do it. No one's going to allow it. But the fact is, it was achieved, it was delivered, and it was implemented. And I'm actually often in Kenya. I'm often in Nairobi. And when you talk to the Kenyans, they look around their streets with pride because they can remember how their lives were being blighted by the amount of plastic occurring on the streets. And they realize that it is in their self-interest now to have supported and achieved that ban. And it has therefore widespread approval. Again, it wasn't a case of people being terrorized into something. It was a case of people being encouraged to do something that they realized it was their own benefit to do. From a comms perspective, that is what we all need to work at in order to achieve this moment we have. And with that, I pass over to Judy.